What's up, everybody? Belligerent here, and you know it's that time. We gotta do a tier list, right? The game has been out long enough. It's time for a tier list. Let's put together a tier list. So that's what we're doing today. Now, let me caution you on a few things. All right, first of all, I have done a lot of play testing, but I have not been able to play test everything as thoroughly as I probably should have in order to do this tier list. But I feel like I have a good enough grasp on most of the champions to get close. This is the first tier list. This tier list is done week 2, and they're still fixing stuff. So I shouldn't be doing this tier list. But we can't wait any longer. We have to. We want to know. So we're going to do it. We're going to revisit it at some point later on down the road, and it's going to change. Some of y'all are going to disagree with what I have to say, and that's good. The only thing tier lists are ever for is conversation and to make you think about something. You should not take my tier list as the Bible of how to play this game, okay? So, we're going to do it. We have all of the champions here, so buckle up. This is going to be kind of a lengthy video probably because there's 36 champions, and I probably can't spend a minute or less on each one. Even if I spend a minute or less on each one, we're still looking at probably about a half-hour video. So it's going to take some time. Hopefully you're in for the long haul. All right. Here's the guidelines for my tier list, because when I watch other people do tier lists, it kind of drives me crazy. All right. So we got S tier, A tier, B, C, D, right? B is the average. It's in the middle. If I do my tier list correctly, the majority of champions should end up in the B tier. They're average. That's the point of average. When I watch tier lists, I hate when 60-75% end up in S tier, and then another 20% are in A tier, and then you got a couple B, C's, and D's, bro. Like, if everybody is S tier is average. When we're talking S tier, we are looking for the standouts, the best of the best, okay? When we look at these, we're looking at them based on ease of use, new player friendliness, right? Because it's so new in the game, I'm not looking later on down. I'll mention some of this. I think some champions are going to perform better in the late game than in the early game. But right now we're looking at early game champions. Which ones are the easiest for people to use? Which ones are kind of plug and play, so to speak? Drop them on your board. They do what they're supposed to do. And do they fill their role? There are some champions on here that you can make work. There are some champions on here you can build very specific comps around. There are even traits. I think there are some combinations of traits and stuff like that hopefully we'll get into in the future that I think could make some really interesting gameplay combinations, but we're not talking about all that right now. We're talking about new player friendly. I just got this character, put it on my board. Can it get me through some campaign levels? We're not talking high level strategizing, position, stuff like that. Just, are they good at what they're supposed to be doing? Do they excel more than the rest of their class? Okay, so let's jump into it. We're just going to go class by class. That's how I have them organized here. So we're going to start with the warrior class. All right, first up is, and I'm going to talk through some of this. I don't have a lot of what I'm going to say planned out, thought out. I'm going to kind of talk it through so you hear my thought process as we go. I kind of know where a lot of them are going to end up, but I'm going to talk it through so you can hear my thought process and hopefully spark some thought, some conversation, maybe some, hey, I want to try that stuff for you. So first we got Doombringers, okay? We're going to start with the male. All right, so the male, I'm going to put him in B tier, all right? The Doombringers look cool, so I think they get more credit than they deserve, okay? But they are pretty strong as far as warriors go. but I don't think he's the strongest. I don't even think he's the strongest in his clan. I think the female is stronger than he is. They're fairly close. I like the female better. She feels like she does more damage. When I have her in my comp, I feel better than when I have him in my comp. I don't feel like he brings a whole lot of special to the board. Okay. So that being said, the female, I'm going to put A tier. When it comes to the warriors, I think she excels, she performs, she does more damage, she survives longer than the rest of them. A lot of that has to do with her passive. She gets lifesteal from her passive, and the amount of lifesteal she has builds without any special conditions all the way up to 50%. Okay, so I'm going to put her in A tier. She's better than the male Doombringer. And I think she, at least the warrior class, I think the warrior class is probably the worst class in the game. No. Yeah, like, I think the warrior class might be the worst class in the game. At least that's how I feel right now. Most of my comps don't have a warrior in them. Like, I don't feel like they feel like they're the jack of all trades in the game, right? They're a little tankier than, say, a marksman. They do a little more damage than a tank, but none of them, minus the one I'm going to put in S tier, really right now that I have seen, at least for like what I'm talking about, new player friendly, drop it on the board. I don't know a whole lot about the game yet, which I would say most of us don't know much about the game yet, unless you were part of the beta testing, then maybe you know more than the rest of us. But as far as like new player friendly, I don't know a lot. There's not a lot of strategies out. We're still trying to figure things out. I don't feel like warriors bring a lot to the table. You know, everybody showed up for dinner and the warriors brought, they brought the side dish of corn. Corn's great, don't get me wrong, but that's not making the meal, right? All right, let's move on to the orcs. See, the male orc, he's tough. Like, I really don't like him. He's all right. He has, he's C tier. That's my opinion. You don't like it, you don't have to. You can put him somewhere else. I think he's just C tier. I don't think he brings anything to the board. He's not horrible. He does good damage. He has, some okay skills. I think it's is it his passive or his ultimate? His ultimate, is it his ultimate? I can't remember. Ultimate or passive. One of them just bothers me. Right? When he gets below, or it's something like when he gets below 50%, he starts getting lifesteal. The lower he gets, the more lifesteal he gets. But so obviously, as he's stealing life, his lifesteal gets less. And like, it contradicts itself. And maybe that's just why I don't like him. But he doesn't bring anything to the table. Like, I don't see a world in which you play more than one warrior on your board anyway. And he's just not the one. All right. So the one is his counterpart. The female orc, I think, is just S tier warrior. She's really the only one to me that stands out. She could, if you put the right traits on her, like, she could be a tank. There have been times going through the campaign where I would get stuck on a level just because we couldn't kill her. We wipe out the rest of the enemy comp. My team would wipe out the rest of the enemy comp, and then they would all gather around her, and she would do her little spin to win thing and just keep healing herself. And one by one, they would eventually all die off. Again, because it's autopilot and you can't tell these AIs to stop being stupid. There's a counter to her, right? So you can counter her, but I feel like she's just so strong, and she has some combinations with some other champions that just make her, like, they just bring so much to the table. The AoE, the heal, when it comes to warriors, like, she's good. She's S tier. If you disagree with me, I'm gonna disagree with you. You're wrong as far as I'm concerned. And this is my video, and I have the voice. You're wrong if you think she's not S tier out of the warriors. She's just so good, and you get her for free right away. So when you're talking about new player friendly, like, you get her after stage 1-8, and you can just ride her as your DPS for so long until you can start drawing some decent heroes. Like, she's so good. The card, and so for the sake of time, I'm not gonna go through like in-depth thoughts on all of them unless I have some in-depth thoughts. So some of them I might just go heh heh heh. And we're gonna do that with the cargs. I'm gonna put both of the cargs as average. Like, they're not horrible. The dragon thing is interesting. The ability doesn't do what their ultimate doesn't do what the description says it does. It says they're supposed to turn into dragon form and then pounce on everybody. They don't. They turn into dragon form and blow fire on everybody. So I don't know if that skill is going to stay, if they're going to change the description and tell us what it actually does, or if we just go, oh, look, there's purple flames. You know, the dragon thing is just meh. Half the time they turn into the dragon and die. So they're not bad. They're not good. They're just whatever. All right. Next, we have the Griffins. I don't think, honestly, anybody's worse than the male Griffin. Like, he does almost nothing for me, and the female is just almost as bad. She just does a little bit more damage. He's more bursty. She's more like, she does 4 hits, and over the course of the 4 hits, she does more damage. He does 3 hits. Each hit is bigger than each hit of her 4 hits, but total damage by the time the ability is done, he does less. Neither one of them do anything for me. I think they're supposed to have, I think one of them or both of them might have airborne on their ability, and I don't think airborne is working yet in the game. So maybe this changes if I'm correct in that, and one or both of them is supposed to have airborne on their ultimate or their active ability. Maybe this tier list changes. Maybe they become more useful when the bug of airborne is worked out and we have some CC. But right now, Griffin is just yeah. All right, so there's the Warriors. S tier is the female orc. A tier, I'm putting in the female Doombringer. Average, you got the Doombringer and the 2 Kargs. C tier, the male orc, and then you got the Griffins in there as well. All right, assassins. Now, there's only 4 assassins. It's not that, there's nothing special. This is going to kind of go quick. The male dark elf assassin, you'll get like 1 million of him, so you'll get to try him out. He's B tier. Like, he kind of does what assassin is supposed to do. He kind of gets to the back line. He kind of does some finisher type stuff, but he's more utility than an assassin should be, as far as like nuking their energy and stuff like that, which is a unique mechanic, but not really what I want my assassin to do. What I want my assassin to do is what the female does, which is just kill things. Right? That's what my assassin is supposed to do, just kill things. And the reason I put her in S tier, although there's an assassin that we haven't got to yet that I prefer a little bit more than her. Actually, a lot a bit more than her. I think she's more new player friendly. It's easier. She's easier to get, for one. Like, she pops up all the time in my champion polls or like from the explorations. But because she's a finisher, I feel like she's more new player friendly. Because early in the campaign, early in the gameplay, while I was learning the game, I'm still learning the game, but while I was learning a lot of stuff, like, I would see things where, like, the female dwarf was one of them. Like, you just couldn't finish her off, and it like starts to become this tedious, annoying skirmish. And because of that tank or whoever it was, we couldn't get to the rest of the team. And then the female dark elf assassin hits her ultimate, jumps behind that person with the lowest health, does a whole bunch of damage, finishes them off, and then we can move on to the next person. So for the stipulations I put out, which is ease of use, new player friendliness, I think the female dark elf is the best one. All right, now we go to the Lycans. Uh, like the female Lycan is B tier. I almost want to put her lower, but lower feels it doesn't lower doesn't feel right. Like I don't think, at least right now, I can't see a scenario in which I would use her. She doesn't do what she's supposed to do. Assassins are supposed to get to the back line. Assassins are supposed to kill high price targets. Assassins are not supposed to necessarily fight from the front line back, and that's what she does. And then she calls the wolves, and they don't do anything except for clutter up the front. Like, she shouldn't be in the assassin category. I think that's why I don't like her. But I do see some, she's not horrible, but she's not any better than average. I would honestly probably, you know what, I'm talking about. She's just C tier, um, but not by much. She's like C plus, B minus tier. Putting the male in the A tier. He gets to the back line probably more effectively than anybody. He doesn't quite have the burst or the finishing ability of the female, at least not as easily. If you get him built up, if you get some stars on him, if you get some levels on him, if you get some weapons on him, he can get that burst and finish them off. But he gets to the back line better, more consistently than the female Dark Elf because she targets the champion with the lowest health. That's not always the person in the back line. A lot of times it's the people in the front line, but she finishes. He almost always targets the back line because he targets, I believe, it's the person with the lowest defense, which is almost always the back line. But even beyond that, his fear mechanic is phenomenal. Now, some of you might argue with me, and that's why I'm putting him in A tier instead of S tier. Like the fear mechanic almost doesn't feel assassin-ish enough. It feels more crowd control, support, utility, tank almost. And quite frankly, I use him a lot, and that's almost the role I use him in. I play him more like he's a tank or a warrior or a hybrid of than I do necessarily for the assassin part of it. His fear mechanic is over. Like, I've seen the entire enemy team running away in fear. That doesn't always do a lot for me because it scatters them out. Sometimes it pushes them out of range for my DPS, but his crowd control fear mechanic might be the best crowd control in the game. So he is my favorite assassin. But the stipulations that I put forth, I believe the female Dark Elf is the best. All right, tanks. All right, first we have the male Sallyhorn, the male dwarf. Okay. I gotta tell you, and those of you that heard the clan series on the Sallyhorns, like, not a big fan of them. I haven't been. However, and I was even, I was talking a little bit of smack about them in the chat on our server, and then I went and pulled a tank from the event that's going on right now where you can pull from specific classes. So I was pulling tanks, and I pulled a mythic male dwarf. So I've been using him a little bit, and he's, not as bad as I thought. However, I don't know, he's A tier. He's not S tier. Definitely not S tier. But I'm going to put him in A tier. I thought he would be like well below average. But the more I'm using him, he's not S tier because I think he's not necessarily plug and play. He doesn't fill if you think tank, at least if you think tank the way I do, he doesn't necessarily fill that role the greatest, but he's actually very good. I think I'm gonna have to do some more with him. I'm gonna probably do a video on him and how I was wrong about him. That being said, the female dwarf doesn't do the the same thing for me. She's just all the way bad. A lot of people like her. I think it's because they're so easy to get. A lot of the conversations I hear are, well, I use them and they do well for me. Well, to me, that just says that's who you got, so you went with it. Like, she doesn't bring, to me, anything to the table except for some sustainability because she gets that revive. It can even happen multiple times if you manage to find a way to keep her alive. I think it's for 30 seconds, which is a long fight anyway. Fights don't usually last that long. If her ultimate did what it said it did, where she like kind of ran into the group and then kind of knocked everybody back, that would be one thing. But most of the time, I feel like her ultimate lands on nobody. At most, it's like one person. So, whatever. The female dwarf, not that good. All right. The Lionhearts. I'm going to put the female Lionheart in B tier. She has some really good mechanics to her. Her ultimate is a team-wide buff for attack speed and strength. So that's great. But to me, that doesn't fill the tank role. Like, that's not protection. Although I guess you could say if you kill them before they kill you, that's the best defense you can have. So I get that, but she doesn't really... Like, somebody has to be average, right? I would put her kind of like at the baseline of tanks. She has the shield that she can share with a teammate. She absorbs some damage from one specific teammate, but her ultimate ability is ultimately a buff, not a tank-like ability. Like, she doesn't detract damage from the team as well as some of the others do. Okay. All right. The male Lionheart, on the other hand, and I'm sure you guys have already heard me say it in other videos, he's S tier. To me, he's the best tank in the game. He's the only tank who has a mechanic that can mimic a tank, like your traditional tank role from, let's say, like a MOBA game, right? Or even an MMO, where you can, in those games, in like player-controlled games, you can position yourself in front of your team, you can block damage, you can absorb damage. Well, in an autopiloted game, we can't do that, but his ultimate shields the entire team. It scales, so you can make it stronger. And so, in a sense, he's body blocking attacks with the shield he gives to the entire team. To me, like, it's a no-brainer that he is S tier. I haven't heard everybody agree with that. I don't know why, but to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, if you are playing a tank for a tank, it's him. All right. The female orc tank is just completely useless. Other than a lot of health, she adds absolutely nothing as far as the tank role, and to me, that's just like that's just bad. You know what? I'll put her in C tier. She's not quite as bad as the dwarf. She adds a little more damage, but that's the only reason I'm bumping her up to C tier, is just because I'm trying to spread these out. No, I'm not. Like, she's just D tier. She's as bad as the dwarf. I'm not worried about it. All right. The male orc, on the other hand, his taunt ability is so good. I thought when I was originally doing this tier list in my head, he was A tier, and Lionheart is S tier, and then there's a big gap between the rest. The male Sallyhorn made his way up into A tier now, as far as I'm concerned. But the male orc has the taunt mechanic. He roars, he taunts, everybody turns and attacks him. I will admit there are times it doesn't feel like it works the way it should. Maybe they still have bugs to work out, hopefully. Sometimes you see him roar, you see him do damage to the other people, and they don't turn around and hit him like the taunt is supposed to work. But a lot of times it does. Like, I've seen it work, so I know it's working to a degree. Maybe I don't understand fully how it's supposed to work. Anyway, the taunt is the second best tank ability in the game. It doesn't quite shield the entire team like the Lionheart does, but it draws damage from teammates. It gives your DPS breathing room to take out people. Fulfills his role very well and easy to plug and play. All right, let's get into the mages now. We're looking at the luxuriance first. Okay. All right. I'm going to put the female in A tier. I think her ultimate is just too strong. She is. I mean, there's a lot to go through it. I don't have time. I'm not going to think it all through right now. But her ultimate might be the best tech mechanic in the game. Might be, best tech utility type. Like, you can put her in situational, but just like she takes over an enemy and they help your team. So, like, it's just strong. There's been times where I'm like, I've been stuck on a campaign level and just like, nothing I'm doing is working, and I just drop her in there, and the few seconds she gives you where you're 6 versus 4 or 5 versus 3, whatever it is, it works. So she's good. The male, on the other hand, he's bad. He's bad. When I originally thought about it, like, I thought his exile was just as good as hers, and it's not. Nowhere as good as hers. His passive weakens the entire enemy team for 3 seconds, and almost nothing happens in 3 seconds. It's just bad. Like, I do not feel nearly as strong with him on the board as with her on the board. Now, I think there is I have toyed around with some comps where I'm playing both, but he's not as good as her. All right. These, I'm going to speed up and go a little quicker. That's not where I'm putting her. Calm down. The female Ignis is S tier. The male is A tier. She's better than he is, in my opinion. Her ultimate that bounces off and hits everybody does lots of damage. It causes the burn to explode. Her passive allows the burning to stack so she can do more damage. He does what she does less effectively. He drops a ball of fire, which doesn't always hit the whole team. Her ultimate ability bounces off the whole team, and if there's less than a whole team there, it'll bounce back and forth between a couple. The only time her ultimate is bad is if there's only one left on the board, and she's probably going to win that fight anyway. But the male is very good, just not as good as her. All right. The same thing with these two. Hang on. Oops. Sorry. I'm running out of real estate in this app on my phone. So I'm putting both of the Fulgars are just S tier. I don't want to get nitpicky about it. They're both just huge board nukes. Very new user friendly. You put them on your board, especially early in the campaign. They hit their ultimate and everything just dies. Like, it's just, you can't really get any much better than that. The male elf mage, what is it, Zeiss? I don't even know how to say their name. He's just meh. He has some interesting support mechanics to him. I don't know if they're fully working yet. He's not horrible. He's not great. He's just, if you're going to play a mage, you have better choices than him. He's just average. I'm going to say the same thing for the female. She does much more damage than he does, but I haven't felt that great with her on the board either. She is one of these champions I probably haven't spent enough time with. She's also one of these champions, one of the few champions I haven't really got a good, decent one of. So, that just is what it is. These are probably the priests. Aeson, I don't know how to pronounce them either. It's Aeson, I think. The priest, this is probably going to cause some controversy because I feel like a lot of people like these, and I just don't. I'm putting him in C tier. He's going to be a late game beast. His passive is you put him on the board and everybody has more strength. Now, when you have him fully maxed out, you go look in the codex. A star 15 level 600 version of him buffs the team 30% strength. But if you don't have that, it's like 2 or 3% strength. And here's the thing, even at 30% strength, like, he doesn't do enough damage himself. He has a shield, which is horrible. Like, it shields the lowest health ally, which is a lot of times the wrong ally to shield. A lot of times it doesn't go off fast enough and they die when they do need it. And it's just, it doesn't do anything. He doesn't do enough damage. So you have to start to think, even at a fully maxed out version, couldn't you just drop another DPS in his spot and get more than 30% more damage? That's kind of how I feel with him, but his percentages as far as the damage buff is not good enough for most players at this point in time, and it's not good enough in early game to really justify using one of your 5 board spaces with him. So I don't like him. But he's slightly better than she is. Like, she, in my opinion, is almost F tier. Like, she doesn't do, like, I think a lot of people like her because she's a healer, a quote unquote healer, and a lot of people think you have to have a healer on your team. No, because she only heals one person. She heals the wrong person because it's based on lowest health. So a lot of times she'll heal your tank when she needs to heal your DPS because the tank is not winning the match for you. And she doesn't add any damage to the board. She's just bad. If you're using her, and if you're a new player and you're stuck on early stages and you're struggling with them and they're harder, especially than they should be on, the early stage. I don't know what, like, the first 3 or 4 stages of the game. Stage one, two. There's stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got like 1 all the way up to 20. I don't know what. But if you're stuck on like one of the first, especially like even in the very beginning of the game, like as soon as you can put somebody else on your board, take her out and watch how much faster you beat them. Like, that was one of the revelations for me with her. Is I'm like, man, these are kind of slogs. And you know what? Let me try something. Take her out, put in an extra assassin or an extra warrior, and it's like, holy cow, look at how much faster we win this match. Like, the priests are just bad. Now, the ones we haven't got yet, the Lumes or whatever, like, when those come in the game, you want to talk about some healers. One of them, if you go read their passive, assuming those are the skills as we get them, I think it's the male. Like, his passive is he just heals the whole team. Just passively heals the whole team. But the priests they're just bad. Like, they're just bad. I'm sorry. All right. Marksman. Ugh. This whole category is almost bad. Here's the thing with Marksman. They're just DPS and they're just single target DPS. Okay. I might be slightly biased to this one. I'm going to put her in A tier. And here's why. She's very new player friendly, and she can put out a boatload of damage. All of her abilities buff her. She puts out a boatload of damage, and you get the companion for her so early and for free, and it's a 1-star. And so you can basically print them for free. It takes 12 clicky clicks, whatever, 12, raising the air 12 times. Like, you can do that in less than a day, so you can raise multiple in a day. Like, she can be really strong. Like, she's my DPS. I leveled the companion, the Travian companion to mythic, and I just print mythics. And she, put it this way, I have an 8-star female Travian and an 8-star female Ignis, both mythic. Okay, both mythic 8 stars, and she out damages the Ignis. A mage that does AoE damage. So I think she's probably, like, all of them are DPS. Most of them are going to end up in B tier because they're just meh. I think she's kind of the one for me because she's so easy to get. She can make you so powerful because of the companion, because of how common they are from the expeditions and things of that nature. I think she's just. I'm gonna put her a cut above the rest. That's. I'm running a little long on time, so some of my explanations are gonna get short. Bear with me. Like we only got 7 more to go through. The male, I'm just gonna put average. He's more techie than she is. Like he's more utility. Like he has a root, which I think acts more like a stun. It says it roots them in place, but from what I've seen, it kind of stops them from doing anything. Also, I don't really care for his ultimate. It goes through everybody. It's supposed to damage everybody it goes through. It doesn't feel like it does that much damage, and half the time he misses anyway. Now the dwarfs, right now the dwarfs are just going in D. I think they are going to be late game beasts. I said this in my clan video about them as well. I think they're going to be late game beasts. I think you're going to have to build them up to 10 stars, 15 stars, and very, very high levels and put enough levels into your passive to keep that stupid badger alive. I don't know how you keep it alive, but I think it's going to be very high levels, very late game. And their kit with that, if that badger stays alive with the type of damage they can put out, feels like it's going to be phenomenal, but I can't judge it on that. We're not judging based on late game, and I haven't got either one of them to that kind of late game stage anyway. So we'll see later on. Like I said, we'll revisit some tier lists later on. I feel like the Hunt's Dwarfs are going to be late game beasts as far as DPS go, but early game, the badger runs out there, hits the first bad guy, falls over and dies, and then all of the entire kit is blown up because all of their skills are based off of them working in unison with this badger. Or maybe we get a buff on the badger, and Goat Games realize the badger needs to stay alive for the class to be worth anything. All right, the male dark elf is just meh. He does some techie stuff, but otherwise, as far as a marksman, he's meh. The female is average. She just is what she is. She has a lot of attack slow, so she's very utility. Not really, it's decent to have with a DPS. Like she's gonna outduel everybody because she's always attack slowing them. So she's always hitting faster. I'm also gonna put the female Tidestorm in average as well. She doesn't really bring anything to the table either. She can put out damage. You know what? I feel like he belongs in average too. Most of the marksmen are just plain single target DPS. They don't really bring a lot that's that impactful to the board. Even the female dark elf with her attack slow just doesn't feel impactful enough. You know what I'm saying? The female Tidestorm, she has that push, that knockback, but it doesn't feel impactful enough. If you've watched my other videos, you know how I feel about knockback in an autopilot game. All it does is delay the inevitable. It pushes somebody away, and all they do is just walk right back. Knockback does not have the same effect in autopilot as it does player-controlled games. And then, so the male Tidestorm is the S tier marksman. His pull is just OP. I'm up into I'm in the stage 11 right now of the campaign. I'm a little behind other people as far as the campaign goes because I've spent so much time. Like I have over 22 accounts just because I redid the beginning so many times so I could understand it, do it, blah, 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 whatever. My main account is up to stage 11 in the story. And let me tell you this, 75% of the time am running a 4-star common male Tidestorm. Like that's how impactful he is. The reason why is because I can't find a stronger one, so leave me alone. I actually have a mythic one on one of my other accounts, but I can't find an epic, I can't find a legendary, I can't find a mythic anything for my main account. So that's why I'm running a 4-star common and I don't want to put a lot of resources into building his stars, because really the only thing I need from him is to stay alive long enough to do his pull. He has his active ability, the pull, I call it the Mortal Kombat Scorpion move. Like, he yanks him into, like, you can target either person on the back line. He targets the back line better than any assassin. He pulls them up into the mix, and then your DPS can burst them down. Your mages can burst them down. It's over. It's GG. If you have somebody like a Fulgar blowing you up and they're on the back line, or an Ignis blowing you up when they're on the back line, or one of those annoying luxuriant females that keeps charming your DPS so your DPS kills your entire team. And if, assuming that succubus is on the back line, not in the middle is a whole different story. But if that luxuriant is on the back line, he pulls them up into the front, boom, they blow him up. Like, his pull is it's the most impactful crowd control in the game, bar none, in my opinion. Bar none. And that's all I need. Like, I don't need a mythic. I know from my other account, if I had the mythic, if I had some stars in him, he puts out a boatload of damage. But what I really need from him is just that pull. And that's why so late in this, like, my whole team is mythics or legendaries that I run, except for him. I'm putting a 4-star common because I just need him to stay alive for the one pull. If he stays alive for more, that's great. I need him to stay alive for one pull for the backline. So that is the tier list. That's the first tier list that we've done for Bloodline. This is version 1.0. We will, I promise you, revisit this. Some of you are going to argue with some of this, I know. I expect to hear a lot of stuff about the priests being way down at the bottom. That's probably what I'm predicting will be the biggest argument I'll hear from people, is the priest. This has been a super long video. I appreciate you guys so much if you stuck it out to this point. Let's just recap real quick before we go. We have the female orc warrior, the female dark elf assassin, the lionheart tank, Ignis, both Fulgars for S tier mages, and the male Tidestorm is the S tier marksman. In A tier, we have the Doombringer for warriors. We have the Lycan for the assassins. We have Sallyhorn and the male orc tank, the male Sallyhorn for our tanks. We have the female luxuriant. We have the male Ignis. We have the female Travian in our A tier. B tier, we have the male Doombringer. We have both of the Kargs. We have the male Dark Elf. We have the female Lionheart. We have both of the Zeus mages. We have the male Treviant. We have both of the Dark Elf. What is the Elsdith? Sorry, I can't pronounce, and I don't have all of the clan names memorized. And the female Tidestorm. In the C tier, we have the male Orc Warrior, the female Griffin Warrior, the female Lycan Assassin, and the male Priest. And then the worst of the worst, like the male Griffin Warrior, we have the Sallyhorn female, we have the female Orc Tank, what are they, Ugrooks or something like that? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the names. The male Luxuriant, the female Priest, and both of the Dwarfs. All right, so let me know in the comments your thoughts. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with. I do genuinely want to hear from you. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend. I am Belligerent. Thank you so much for sticking it out if you made it through all 45 minutes of this video. I appreciate you so much. Let me know what you guys want to see. Leave me some comments, shoot me a message, whatever you want to do. Peace.